The Johnstown flood occurred on May 31st, 1889. The flood was a flash flood, and it happened because the town was built on a floodplain while the city was growing. Also, the town needed more space, so the riverbanks were narrowed. The main reason why this flood happened was because the South Fork Dam broke down because of the heavy rains. There was 20 million tons of water that was flowing down the narrow valley. The water got up to 60 feet high and was going 40 miles an hour. It was over in 10 minutes, but it took Johnstown 5 years to clean up after all the damage.
There was more floods in Johnstown that occurred in 1894, 1907, and 1924. After those were the St. Patrick's Day flood in 1936, which reached all the way to Pittsburgh. In 1977, a similar flood occurred like the one in 1889. The rivers rose and the watershed was above the city. It started when Lake Conemaugh rose after a heavy rainfall and the water began to crest the dam. A group of men tried to get the water out by using fish traps to relieve the pressure on the dam, but they failed. The wall eventually eroded. Engineers were at a loss of what to do to help the dam. Later that afternoon, the dam burst and the water from the lake went down the river valley. The damage was that the whole lake drained fully, and fully built houses got caught in the flood, and a bridge was destroyed.
The impacts of the flood were devastating. 2,209 people died, including 396 children. There are most likely more victims, but they were never identified. Bodies were found as far as the city as Cincinnati. There was $17 million of property damage. Downtown Johnstown was completely destroyed as well. The amount of water that went through Johnstown was the amount of water that goes through Niagara Falls in a half hour. This was the first time that the Red Cross helped a flood relief as well.
After the 1889 flood, the residents living in Johnstown were educated on what to do if a flood were ever to occur again. The governor of Pennsylvania ordered engineered troops to rebuild the town, and in 1890 the first flood walls were built of concrete and around the river.
After the second flood in Johnstown, the Johnstown flood tax was put into effect. It was a temporary tax to help clean up the city. It was a 10% tax on alcohol. Today, though, the tax still exists and it's now 18%. The money now goes to general funds for lawmakers. The city of Pittsburgh made the Johnstown Local Flood Protection Project. It was a new design for river channels, and there were tests every single time it rained. The channels were deepened and widened, and more concrete was put in. There was also paved side slopes all along the river for water to go into, and it cost $8.87 million. It prevented floods until 1977 when the third major flood occurred.